Hi friends, my name is Nate Mims. Thank you for joining us at Grace today, and today we are going to continue exploring the Enneagram, looking at this as a spiritual practice, reminding ourselves that just as we tend to see the world and respond to life in a certain way, other folks do that too. So we have to understand ourselves. We have to understand how we shift and move in times of stress and in times of security, because there's a certain autopilot that we can get stuck on. We can just sort of coast, and instead of being thoughtful or proactive, we can just be reactive. As Christians, we strive to know ourselves so that we can know God, so that we can love others as we would like to be loved. And we've got to know how we see the world and be able to understand how others respond and react to life as well. So today we are looking at Enneagram 6s. And if you are a 6, or if someone you know is a 6, then there is a good chance that they are a worst case scenario planner. They can imagine the different ways things could fall apart. 6s don't always trust those in positions of authority because they can imagine worst case scenarios that could happen with those authorities. At the same time, though, 6s can be fiercely loyal. They can be very loyal to friends, to families, to communities. They can form a team and stick with it. 6s, if they have friends that are not 6s, a friend of a 6 might say, "You're really worried. You're really anxious. Do you really think that's going to happen?" 6s are waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're imagining what could happen, what could go wrong, and they want to be prepared just in case things go wrong. But because they keep imagining different things that could go wrong, and because they keep imagining solutions to what could go wrong, they can get stuck in that analysis paralysis. Now, 6s are in this head center. When life happens, the first response is to think. And so they start thinking about what they could do, but then they might start thinking about how that could be the wrong choice. 6s can feel like it is impossible to finish tasks because there's so much to get done. There are so many different decisions to make. There are so many outcomes that could happen. How could I possibly make a decision and not second guess myself? And because of that guessing and reconsidering, things take a long time for 6s. Now, each week we have had a meme to sort of get to the heart of these different personality types on the Enneagram, and because I have a couple cats and cats are close to my heart, we're doing cat memes. And I mean this to all the 6s watching in the best of ways, but this sort of describes a 6. 6s at themselves. Please slow down. My cats are stupid. Now, I mean that in the best of ways, 6s. You are not stupid. You are thoughtful. You are meaningful. And we need you. But you know that fear that you have. So, healthy 6s. Healthy 6s know that they can trust their own experience in life because they have made decisions before that have gone well, and even because in the past when they have gone a certain direction, when they have made a certain decision and it didn't go right, they know that they can make a U-turn, that they can turn things around, that they can get repositioned, and that one wrong decision isn't the end. They have a healthy perspective. They are aware of their certainty and the limits of their predictability. They know that even the weather people don't get it right 100% of the time, so why should we? Their thoughts and their actions are grounded and centered in a common good because of that loyalty that they have, because of those connections and the teams and the networks that are so important to them. They live into that loyalty and want to lift others up. They want to be that rising tide that rises all ships. Average 6s are going to question and worry and have doubts. They're going to struggle with anxieties and fears, and this week probably has not been fun for 6s, let alone any week during this pandemic, frankly. 6s are finding themselves feeling unsafe and worried and anxious because they keep questioning and worrying and wondering what could go wrong, when the other 6 could drop. And so to manage some of that anxiety and fear and worry and doubt, sixes will sometimes cling to something that they can be directly in control of. Since everything else is up in the air, what is something that I can be in control of, that I know everything will be just right in this space? An average six might have something, whether at work or with their kids' school or with government, with their school, with some sort of social event, something they will seek control over, so they have that control to fall back on. And then an unhealthy six is going to have danger around every corner. It's going to be Chicken Little thinking the sky is always falling. It is going to be imagining how everything could go wrong and then telling themselves everything is going wrong, and they can't see what is being right because they can't trust others, because they can't trust outcomes, because they can't trust themselves to make a decision. They're just going to fall into this spiral that is making them unable to trust others or trust themselves, and they can't really get anything done from there. Now, because sixes are very loyal, they make great friends. And when one person was asked, "What do you like about being a six?" this is how they responded: "If you ever ask me for a steak, I will give you a full cow. I am loyal and giving, and I appreciate our friendship." Now, what someone did not like about being a six is this: one of the worst things about being a six is the tendency to feel overwhelmed and stressed and want to shut down and not to think or act productively. When something is overwhelming or stressful, I want to put it off until the last possible minute. One of the biggest things I've had to learn is how to face my fears and indecision and not let them paralyze me. And when one person was asked, "What do you like about being a six?" they responded, "When asked a question, I just want an honest, truthful answer. I don't want what you wish for. I don't want what you hope for. I want the truth. And it doesn't matter. I don't want to irritate, embarrass, or intimidate or threaten you. I just want the truth." They just want that honesty. So, questions to consider if you or if someone you know is a six. Once you form a bond with someone, are you very committed to that? Are you going to find ways to maintain a relationship and a friendship and a connection? Do you often feel worried or anxious about the future? Do you have questions and concerns about what could go right? When Google tells you all the different ways that you could map your route, do you worry about which one to take and then compare it to Waze and then compare it to another traffic app and then still not know which way to take because you were not sure which way to take? Does it take you a while to make decisions? And when you make a decision, do you do so by committee? Do you do so because you need to hear those different perspectives and those different views? You need to have those different understandings so you know what the different outcomes could be. And so you make a decision by committee to figure things out. Do you sometimes have issues with authority figures, questioning their motives or being loyal to them without questions? Sixes can be, with the Enneagram, what is called phobic or counterphobic. Sometimes, because sixes have this worst case scenario mindset, this thought of everything that could go wrong, some sixes are phobic, and so they will do everything to avoid those fears. But other sixes are counterphobic, which means they see that fear and they decide to go skydiving with it. They just dive head first. And we see that same phobic and counterphobic dynamic with sixes when it comes to authority figures, sometimes rebelling instantaneously against them without knowing any details, and sometimes diving full force into authority with them because they're in authority, so why would I question it? They're making the decisions. We'll just go from there. Now, in stress and security, we've seen how the Enneagram maps movements of how stress and security sort of change our perspective. In stresses, the arrow goes away from 6 towards 3. And in that 3 space, sixes can become workaholics. In that sort of stress and uncertainty, they're going to seek something that they can control. So they will have that space. Maybe it's work, maybe it's school, whatever it is, that space where they can project an image of competency, of having things under control, and they can put a mask over their uncertainties and fears and worst case scenarios because things are not under control, because that is pushing the stress in a 3 or in a 6. They're moving to that 3 space, and then they have to have something under control. In security, though, the arrow pointing towards 6 comes from 9. So in this space, they still can see things from a broad perspective. They can still see possibilities. They can still have a decision made by committee. They don't have to do everything on their own, and that can be a very positive thing. And in this space, they can know, I've made good decisions before. I don't have to question myself over and over again. I can be more accepting of others. I can be more accepting of myself, and I can trust myself, and I can move forward together. Now, the wings in the Enneagram are the numbers on either side. So a 6 can have either a 5 wing or a 7 wing. So even with their wings, they are well centered in the middle of this head triad. So 6s with a 5 wing are going to be a bit more introverted, possibly more cautious, and a bit more likely to seek authority figures, to have that external decision maker for them. They need a good deal of alone time, as we saw with the 5s last week. And that alone time, that study, that inquisitive nature of the 5 wing could help them have a broader perspective because they're researching more, because they're discovering more. They can know sort of a wider scope about certain things. But the counter for that with 6s is that analysis paralysis. Because they are taking in more perspectives, because they're seeing things in a new way, they can get stuck in imagining how all of those new ways could fall apart, and they don't know what to do with it all. The 6 with the 7 wing is going to be more extroverted, more outgoing, probably more adventuresome as well. It might be the type of 6 that goes skydiving. It might be the type that is always up for another adventure, that can be a bit more spontaneous. And we'll get into 7s next week, and we'll see what that looks like. Now, with the Enneagram, there is always a deadly sin. There's a core sort of fault that we feel within us that can separate us from ourselves and from God. And the sin that 6s live with the most is fear. There's always this fear, to imagine worst case scenarios, to not know what I can do for myself, so I need an authority figure to know that for me. Or how can I trust that authority figure because I don't know what they're doing behind the scenes? I should probably be afraid of that. To questioning and doubting, there's just a pervasive fear that can surround 6s. Fears of uncertainty, fears of not knowing if I've done the right thing, fears of not knowing if my loyalty will be reciprocated in my relationship. There's a lot of fears that 6s have. And so the countering virtue to this is faith, is hope, is love. It is that faith that lets them trust themselves and others. This reminder that they have done it before, God has seen them this far, and God will see them go even further. So each week we've looked at SNAP, this thoughtfulness technique for stopping, noticing, asking, and pivoting. As the reformer John Calvin said, we have to know ourselves if we are to know God. So we've got to stop. We've got to notice what is going on in our lives, ask ourselves some questions, and then pivot towards health and wholeness with God and with one another. And so stopping for 6s can be a little tricky. 6s' minds are often rushing in a variety of ways, but they've got to actually stop and slow down and just try to stay centered in the moment and not rush to the next thing. It may not be easy for you if you are a 6, but you can try to stop. And however long you have stopped for, that's successful. Spiritual practices are not about doing them right or wrong. They're about doing them and learning from them and growing into them. And it becomes a discipline because, frankly, disciplines are difficult. But we practice. We don't necessarily achieve these practices because they are a practice. So however much you are able to do, however much you are able to stop and slow down, well done, good work. Thank you for achieving this goal. Now, when they stop, sixes need to notice certain things. Notice if you are overcommitted and overwhelmed. Are you so loyal to different groups and to different arrangements and to different needs that you are stretched thin and you don't know what to do next because there's so many things going on and you have just, your loyalty has stretched you wider and wider? Are you worried? Are the things in your life that you are actually in control of, do you have fears about them? And are there things in the external world that you can't really control, but you want to try to achieve control for that? And how's that spinning around in your mind? Stand back from yourself for a moment if you're a six and just sort of observe the voices in your head that are talking back and forth. And ask yourself, do I really need to listen to these right now, or can I hear a new perspective? And that's the ask, right? What do I truly believe right now? Do I believe that I have to have a contingency plan for my contingency plans? Do I believe that my decisions are always questionable and uncertain? Do I believe that the world is always full of danger and cannot be trusted? Or do I believe that these certain people can only be trusted? These positions, these authorities, these friends can do no wrong. So if anyone tells me otherwise, I will ignore it. How do those beliefs, how do those thoughts, how do those voices in your head make you feel? Do they make you feel whole and complete? Do they make you feel worried or anxious? Do they make you feel fearful? What are those fears doing to you because of those thoughts? And with all of those thoughts and beliefs and feelings, what is actually true? Is the truth that there's always terror around the next corner? Is the truth that there is always something evil just on the other side of the dawn? Is the truth that you can never make a right or good decision, and so you always have to second guess yourself? I think if you're a six, you know that that is not the ultimate truth, and you can let go of those feelings and thoughts and beliefs. And that's how you pivot. You start to have a more positive outlook on life. You begin to see success within yourself. And maybe if you're a six, you can write down a list of things that you have done that have worked out for you. So when you question yourself, you can remind yourself, hey, we've done an okay job. We're doing our best. Let's keep doing our best. Maybe you can stay out of the future and find yourself in the present. It is easy for a six to just keep projecting themselves further and further out, but they need to stay grounded in this moment as best they can. The future will come, and we should be prepared for it. That is a gift that sixes give the rest of us. They can see out, they can plan, they can imagine, and we need that help. We need that projection, but we need to be in this moment as well. And sixes need to possibly remember this prayer and have it become their mantra. As Julian of Norwich said, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Now what Ian Cron and Suzanne Stabile write in The Road Back to You, an Enneagram journey, is this: sixes need to be encouraged to doubt themselves less and trust themselves more. They are stronger and more resourceful than they know. If you are a six, you are stronger and more resourceful then you know. You can do this work, and we need you to do what you are here to do. We need you to achieve and strive and reach out and become the person that God knows you are. So trust yourself and trust the calling that is on your life. Yes, things will go wrong. Yes, there are contingencies that will not go your way, but you don't need a backup to the backup to the backup to the backup. Pray for the best and prepare for the best. And if things go otherwise, we'll find another way forward. So some spiritual transformation for a 6. Some things that you could do if you're a 6, or if the folks that you love are a 6. 6s need to be aware of their relationships with authority figures. Whether they concede power to them quickly or rebel automatically, 6s just need to recognize where they are on that spectrum, where they are with that loyalty and that sort of phobic, counterphobic dynamic, and recognize where they are, because if they're just stuck in autopilot, they're not going to be able to be at their best. 6s need to practice accepting compliments without deflecting them and without questioning the motives behind them. They just need to cherish them and be thankful for them. And 6s, perhaps the biggest thing that they can do is notice the difference between a legitimate fear and an unnecessary anxiety. There are real things to be worried about. There are real things to be afraid of. There are real things that we should have contingency plans for. But there are other things that are only in our heads. And in those moments, we have to ask ourselves, is this really going on, or am I just thinking about this too much? That's a bit about Enneagram 6s. If you want to know more, we've been exploring the Enneagram thanks to The Road Back to You and that book by Cron and Suzanne Stabile. You can find that in anywhere, and maybe check it out at Beaverdale Books and see if they have it. There's a whole host of Enneagram books and resources available. The Enneagram Institute is in the description of this post as well. You can learn more there. Thank you for joining us at Grace today, and until next time, grace and peace, everybody. We'll see you later.